Yeah. Hey. Hey.
Everybody wants me. um, so what did we say, John? The Department of Justice. I gotta write this down because I'm gonna be forgetting everything, man. Uh, Hey, yo, what's good, everybody? It's your boy, Manny, and we're coming to you live from the Manny J Media headquarters here in Worcester, Massachusetts, and I'm here with the city manager of Worcester, Mr. Eric Batista. How are you, my friend?
Good. How you doing, Manny?
Right before we went on, John said, Manny, turn down your volume.
He did say it.
So this is not John's product. I'm still... Okay, we're there. I just want to be able to see your comments if you guys comment. But good morning and happy first day of spring.
Happy first day of spring.
I act like I know that, but again, my fabulous producer reminded me today is the first day of spring. Thank God. I'm so over winter.
Yeah. I'm ready for the summer.
Yeah.
I'm ready to skip. I'm ready to skip over spring and go right into the summer.
Yeah. So speaking of spring, I'm just a little curious. Does the city have anything happening that maybe everybody should know about coming up fairly soon?
Yeah, I think recently we submitted a change in policy in the way we're going to provide waiver.
Oh, that's not what I meant. We'll get to that in a second.
Oh.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but that's
my
not what I
bad.
meant.
Oh.
I meant like, Polar Park's going to be doing their season
okay,
opening.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
what kind of
yeah.
things are actually happening?
I think now in the spring, right? Polo Park I believe next week is the opening day, 5th year of the park. There's a lot of new events. We just had St. Patrick's Day event parade happen. There's a lot of new events coming up in the city. So this is the time where you start to, you have a little pep in your step. You know,
we get to come back
You get
outside.
people can come back outside. I was just walking the neighborhood yesterday with my son and playing outside with him. So again, it gives you the opportunity to get outside a little bit. All the allergies start to come in again.
Listen, I've been having this little tickle like for days, and I'm like, no, because you go from like being, cold winter,
in a cave,
scared of the flu all season. Then you get that little tickle in your throat, and then you get that reminder of, okay, it's just spring. Speaking of it just being spring, we live in New England.
We do,
and it's, is this our teaser spring? Are we gonna get some? I mean, I know you're not a weatherman, but what do you think? What do you feel in your soul?
I'm hoping that it's we're done and we're ready to go some hot weather. I'm ready to get away from the coat and the gloves and having to put the heater in the car.
That's right.
I'm ready to roll down the windows.
That's right. And speaking of the warm weather and getting back outside, one of the biggest draws that Worcester has about being outside is we have a lot of events, particularly in spring, but most definitely all summer. I mean, so many so that I think people like compete to a certain extent, which, guys, just try to collaborate, bring those events together, because I can't make it to every one, and I want to be at all the events, but I think it'll be so much better if we just came together, made our events a little bit bigger, and did the thing so it's not so many. So just like, how do you get to all the events in one day?
You can't. So that's why you have to be, you have to manage your schedule as best. But you said it right. There's a lot of great stuff happening in the city. A lot of people who are doing some really cool stuff that, again, we've been a part of or we've been able to attend and visit. So it's good for the economy. It's also good for our local businesses, but it's also just good overall for the image of the city, knowing that there's so many opportunities where people can engage with.
Absolutely. And speaking of opportunities, we're trying to figure out new ways to make those opportunities a lot more accessible, equitable, and affordable to the residents and the community here in Worcester. I know one thing had just happened. Was it this past city council meeting? Yes. Where there are new special events permitting, which I'm hoping is going to make it a whole lot easier for all of us. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so if you ever did an event in the city of Worcester, you had to go, through every
hoop and hurdle,
obstacle. You felt like you were at a obstacle course. And we wanted to make that a lot easier. We wanted to make it more streamlined. And so we've streamlined the process. Everything is going to go through the cultural office. The cultural office will have one point of contact at all times for every event organizer. No longer they need to go to every single department to obtain a permit. And then part of that, we also looked at the permit fees and said, okay, what can we be able to say, you know what? This is a moment, an opportunity to make a big blast and get rid of these permit fees to allow community members to host the event and not have to deal with a $5 sound permit or $10 this or $15, whatever it may be.
Nickel and dime left and right.
Correct.
The next thing you know, you don't got any money for the event.
Correct. And so then you're waiting for the event to happen so people can generate some money to then be able to pay the bill. So it's like, how do we reduce those barriers? And that's the approach that we took. And again, this didn't happen just by us simply saying, let's just do what we want to do. It happened because we heard a lot from community and council meetings and surveys and phone calls, emails, just conversations that people would say, this needs to get better. And I think this is a step in that direction to try to get better in the way we serve our community for the purposes of events.
Absolutely. And speaking of events, I got a comment here from my mom. I love you, Mom. Thank you for always watching and supporting. She's so sweet. But we were talking yesterday about a really important point in that, like, a lot of things that I grew up with, a lot of things that are nostalgic to me kind of no longer exist. And there's not a lot for our community, for our kids even, to do. I think there's a lot of focus and emphasis being put on adult entertainment and places where maybe families, but more so it's like where can the businessman go and spend his dollar after work? But we're missing out on things like bowling alleys, movie theaters, and I don't. When's the last time you saw a carnival in the city?
Oh yeah, no, I remember. I used to go where actually the Polo Park used to be. I used to go there.
Exactly.
I
And
used
I'm
to
not
go
trying to
there.
be funny. I'd rather go to the carnival. No offense, Polo Park, but
It was always
I'm not a baseball
it
guy.
was always there at Greendale Mall.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
That's where we went.
So, are you gonna be invited to carnival anytime soon, please?
I,
Who does? Can I do it? Just
I
call
mean,
on me?
if that's what you want to do. Again, you're right. There's a lot more restaurants, there's bars, there's entertainment space for adults. There's limited opportunities for young people to really get out there and really engage. And we've seen that over the years. And so I have asked the youth office to establish a youth agenda, which is basically working to with young people to identify what are the areas that we're missing, what are the areas that we need to put more emphasis to.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, right, if there's an opportunity where I can leverage a business owner or someone with some investment dollars to say, hey, we need X, Y, and Z in Worcester. Can you do that for us? Those are opportunities that I can negotiate as a city manager with the private sector to try to get them to come to the city and point them in the right direction based on the needs that we have. And so I've asked the youth office to do this. They've been working at it. Hopefully, we'll have some answers soon in terms of a plan that addresses the needs of our young people in our city, and then we can then kind of work towards those areas.
And how can people stay up to tune with that?
Yeah.
What department do they need
This
to
is
follow?
the youth office under Raquel Castro. She's the one leading the office.
Listen,
Yeah,
Raquel, she's amazing.
Yeah.
If there's anyone you could trust in the city, Raquel Castro got it held down. You can definitely trust her.
Yeah, and Raquel and I go way back. We actually went to high school together. We've known each other a very long time, and she's great. She knows the young people. She knows the work very well. So she's the one that's tasked, and her team is tasked with kind of producing this plan. So we're hoping that in the next, probably the next year or so, maybe less, we'll be able to have a full youth agenda, kind of like the chip, right? The chip that has all these goals and objectives, things that we want to achieve. What does that translate to young people, and what are the things that we need to do for our young folks?
Yeah. So I mean, I'm gonna be honest. As a parent of young people myself, they got it. It's like it's completely different, especially since they weren't able to necessarily experience a lot of the things that we experience. How can people like me, and can a parent, put in their 2 cents on things we'd like to see around the city for us to be able to do with our families?
I think it's through this process, right? Working with the youth office. The youth office always try to think innovatively. They do the Create 508 to try to get young people in the downtown to do more creative opportunities as well. So they're always trying to be creative and finding ways to provide more for the young people. And we need to do a lot more. I mean, that's my background. My background is working with low income first generation youth, and that's me. That's a low income first generation youth. That's me, and that's what I did for almost 10 years before I even came here to the city. So I believe in this work, and again, we're going to try to find a plan or a strategy in which we can address some of these areas that we need to strengthen our young people.
All right, thank you very much. And moving on, I want to talk about a special thing that just happened in the city this week, and that is Chief Paul Saucier he's no longer acting chief. He is the chief of police in Worcester, and he just had his inauguration on Tuesday? Friday? Last Friday?
Last Friday. It's okay, man.
Listen, me and Dave,
dates
names, we are not friends. But yeah, so Friday, Chief Saucier was sworn in. Tell me a little bit about that. How'd that feel? How'd that go?
Yeah, I think the ceremony went well. It was a great, well-attended ceremony. I am very excited for this opportunity to work with Saucier at this level. I've had the opportunity to work with him in many different spaces prior to this role when I was also in different roles in the city manager's office. And he's someone who is of integrity and also has a lot of passion for the work that he does in the department. And I think one of the things that has been very good and for me to kind of see his growth in this area is his ability to really engage community and be open about conversations with community. He doesn't shy away from it. But he shows that he wants to improve and make some improvements in the department. And that's why for me, it was something that not only helped with continuity of the things that we needed to do, but also how do we do a little bit more and make sure that this department continues to grow and be able to strengthen over time. And he's been able to do that, and he's showing a strong will to be a great leader and great manager in the department. And so we're very excited about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to say, just from my perspective as a community member, that I have seen Chief Saucier addressing some of the concerns that the community has expressed. I have seen more of an effort to have more officers on the street, as opposed to like in cars as
Mhm.
an omniscient present,
Mhm. Mhm.
but actually engaging with the community and being a familiar presence
Mhm.
where it's not so
Mhm.
threatening, if you
Mhm.
will.
Mhm.
I have noticed some changes happening already, so I look forward to seeing what more excuse me, Chief Saucier is going to be doing throughout his tenure. But we're going to talk a little bit more about what you guys are working together doing already in
Mhm.
just a moment. First, we got to go thank our amazing sponsors. We're not spanking nobody over here. We're not doing it. We're thanking our amazing sponsors, Paul. I mean, John, just go.
Era.
And welcome back to Manny and the Manager. It's great to have you here
Absolutely, man.
once again.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for showing up and having this conversation with me to update the community on everything that's been happening since the last time we talked. It's okay. You got this. It's fine. If it falls, we'll fix it. But thank you for being here. I know there's a lot going on in the city, and there's a lot going on within your department or your administration, excuse me, working with the police department, specifically after so much have has come out after the Department of Justice report that was in November. Mandates,
Yeah.
October,
Yeah.
November. I'm
Yeah.
glad to see that you're struggling too,
Yeah. I forgot
because
when it came out. But sometime around that
it
time.
was
Yeah.
around
It
that
was like
time.
November, December. Yeah.
Um,
I think it was
so
December. Yeah.
there was a lot of division,
Yeah.
the palatable and noticeable between the police department and the community who feels betrayed or wronged. Um, Let me rephrase that: who were betrayed or wronged by the police department. I know just by personal experience, and I'm not going to ask you to say what I'm saying, but from what I've seen throughout my life, my experience, um, the DOJ report was not far off from what my interactions with the police department have been. Um, I will say my experience currently has been a lot more positive, which is great, right? That's the goal. What have you and Chief Saucier have been working on to make the outcome of whatever was in the DOJ report? Because I'm sure you've taken something from it to be better. What has that been?
Yeah. I think one of the things from the report is I know that there at front we came out with a strong message in which we felt strongly in opposition of some of the things that the report had characterized, and to some degree we still feel like there's some reports of that report that mischaracterized the actual cases, but that's not hearsay or no there. There are some real recommendations that came out of that report. There was about 19 recommendations in that report to strengthen the department from data, right? Having better data, better gathering of data, being more transparent with the data, from better policies around use of force, policies around sexual misconduct, uh, policies around dogs, the canine. There's policies around improvements of policies around all of that, and it's not just policies, changes of policies. It's also improving and implementing some of those policies as well in
Yeah.
the department, right? And so, because you can have all the great policies, but if they're not fully implemented, then it doesn't go anywhere.
Right.
And I think
It
that's
might look good on paper, but
correct.
if it's not put into action, what does it matter?
Exactly. And so, one of the things that the chief and I have been working on, we've taken a step back and trying to see, okay, what are some real things about these recommendations that we can put into action, and what are some of these things that we've already started to work on in the department prior to this report being released. because we knew that there was areas that we needed to improve. He knew that there was areas that we needed to strengthen, and so we started to look at some of the policies. The use of force policies have been strengthened. There's a sexual misconduct policy that's been strengthened. The canine policy. One of the things about the canine is that he said no longer canines will be deployed for large events. They used to be, or large brawls or whatever they used to be. He no longer is doing that. He's also choosing to include more leadership involved in the reviewing of cases, of any investigations, etc. So there's a number of things. We submitted a report to council that I believe Tuesday will be in discussion. There will be a joint committee of the council body where they will be discussed solely and particularly only the DOJ report and the status update on kind of where we're at. And we feel strong that there's areas that we need to improve as a department. We have a policy review committee. They've been working and getting feedback and strengthening that with the Human Rights Commission. And so there's areas that we need to strengthen and we need to improve on. And that status update report has provided an outline of those areas that we'll continue to do that.
Excellent. And what does accountability look like? Because I think that's one of the biggest things that the community has trouble swallowing is that, in the DOJ report, yes, I don't know. I wasn't there. I can't speak to any mischaracterizations or whatever you just said about the report. But what I can say is that, there were videos of certain incidents, the dog incident being one, the pasta incident being another, the dude in the gurney being another, that were clear oversteps and abuse of power and abuse, right? But I think we're not getting the accountability part of it. We're not seeing where somebody's being held to account for what transpired. Are there going to be new accountability practices where the community can at least better swallow what is happening?
Yeah, I think one of the questions I think that at some point we need to have is about what's accountability, right? Because that's a blanket word. And what levels and what expectation of accountability is it? Is it this person did this, so they should automatically be terminated, or is it a suspension okay? Is a 60-day suspension okay? Is a 20-day suspension okay? Depending on the incident, right? Every incident is different, but it's all depending on kind of the incident and what the accountability looks like. Oftentimes, community says an officer did this, get him out. This, get him out. No matter the level. But again, there's state laws and federal laws that we need to adhere to and try to understand before we make a decision. Also, the officer has an opportunity to appeal any disciplinary decisions that are made, and they can go before an appeal process in terms of what that decision was made in terms of that. The union negotiates as on behalf of them as well in terms of some of these disciplines. So again, there's a lot of factors, but it comes down to like what level of accountability depending on the incident. Now, are these incidents that we saw in front of us?
If you assaulted someone at City Hall, I'm sure there'd be, you know what I mean? Like if you smacked somebody upside the head while they were laying in a gurney, you'd probably be fired.
Perhaps, yes. That's me as a city right? as a city manager, yes. But we don't know that. We don't know what council would decide to do. Community mayor might want me to be fired, but what if council decided, you know what, we're only going to suspend the manager for a week? Is that accountability enough, or is it you smack someone automatically you're terminated? I don't know. That again, it all depends on the situation and how the situation is managed. That then those decisions are made. I'm not saying it justifies. I'm not saying that it justifies. I'm just saying that there's different accountabilities are different depending on the situation. And does it mean that every time an officer does something, automatically just termination? I don't know that. It may be that that's what the community is asking for. What I'm saying is that there has been accountability. It may not be the accountability that the community has been expecting. And I think that's what I'm just trying to communicate.
Okay. So what I'm gathering from that is you and Chief Saucy are still kind of trying to figure out what accountability looks like.
No, I think him and I are aligned in that. I think now him and I are aligned in terms of what accountability looks like for our department and how we want to approach things. These accountability measures that are displayed in the DOJ happened prior to me being a city manager, and also prior to the chief being the chief. I know he was in leadership roles in the department, but it was prior to him being the chief. And ultimately, people say, well, you have the influence of decision making. You do and you don't. Because when the person that has the ultimate decision power at the end of the day is the person at the top. And so the chief and I look forward to better accountability in the department. That's why we're putting better policies in place to hold departments accountable. I've been very adamant about accountability of my leadership departments, heads, and holding them accountable. I've been very adamant about instituting performance evaluations. We've never had them in the city of Worcester. Police department hasn't had them. Fire department hasn't had them. Myself, I have them because of, but and most of our employees doesn't have them, right? And so I've been very adamant. And so in the previous contracts, my union labor contracts, I've been very intentional about making sure that we have performance evaluations as part of the contracts with the union, so that we can then begin a process to implement performance evaluations for every employee. And that way, and that's an accountability piece.
Yes.
And again, we've never really had that as part of the city of Worcester family.
Excellent. So it sounds to me like there are new things brewing and happening, which is great. How can the community put their 2 cents in? I know there's some commissions that they can. There's maybe not, the commission might not be the right word, but there's boards. The
Boards
city,
and commissions.
Thank you, boards and commissions. I have both words. I just separated. Like the Human Rights Commission, for example,
Correct.
Where people can engage with and help the city come to these conclusions. Where can people find that information?
Yeah, so on the website, the City of Worcester website, whether it's on the city manager's page or the HR page, we have boards and commissions opportunities available. But I think people have a misunderstanding of the Human Rights Commission. Human Rights Commission is not the oversight body for the police department. Mm-hmm. Human Rights Commission is responsible for civil rights and discriminatory investigations, whether it's in the city or even for the public or even in the city family. And their job is to do policy review as well. They're not the oversight commission of police. There's been discussions about the need for one, right? Civilian review board.
For sure.
About that. But that's different than Human Rights Commission, right? And those are two separate things. But I think people want to utilize the Human Rights Commission as that body. Yeah. Because the Civilian Review Board doesn't exist. So I think people try to kind of bring two into one, but those are two distinct situations.
So are we going to make something available for the community? Is that something on your purview?
So right now we have requested the partnership of the Worcester Research Bureau to do a full research analysis and review of what all different civilian review boards are. There's many different models, different perspectives, and so we've tasked them to do that, and independent from the city, so they can do that, provide that to the city, and then we can have discussion on the council floor on what path forward we take. Related to this civilian review board.
It's gonna be a lot of table in there. We know it's the city council loves the table stuff. Anyway, moving on, because we could talk about that all day, and we don't have much time because you do have other things to do. I'm so sad you're gonna leave me soon. But I would be remiss not to talk about the housing crisis while I do have you. It's still like a nationwide thing, but in our little bubble here in Worcester, that's what we're concerned about most, is how our community, how are our citizens having the security of housing. I do see a lot of buildings going up, which is cool. There's development here in the city, which means life, right? That means that we're moving, we're not a dead city. That's all great stuff to see. However, I still see a lot of my friends, family, and people on social media complaining about unaffordability, not being able to own a home or even rent an apartment here in the city. They're moving to places like Fitchburg or Southbridge or Webster. What is the city doing to maintain its loyal residents?
Yeah, no, it's a great question, and it's a very kind of complex situation, because there's so many factors that are impacting the housing market right now. There is a lot of development. A lot of this development were plans that were submitted 2-3 years ago. It's not like as there's any new building that you see going up right now. It's not something that was submitted last year. Mm-hmm. For example, many of them, if not all of them, were plans that were submitted 3, 4, sometimes even 4 years ago, and they're finally now being raised and being open to residents. So what that means that is how slow development in terms of producing housing is for any community, it takes time. It takes a good 18, if not 24 months to really go through a process to try to build up and construct a property. Which means is that the city of Worcester, the speed of which the city is growing is faster in terms of the population, is faster than we're producing housing. And so when you don't have enough housing production, it impacts the ability of the rents. Now, when there's a demand for a community, we never expected that Worcester was going to be selling three deckers for $700,000. Mm-hmm. So when you have a three decker that's selling for $700,000, how do you charge $1,000 a unit when your mortgage is going to be more than probably $5,000 or $6,000 a month? So I think those are the issues that we're facing as a community. Now the city, though, our job is to try to figure out policies, right? Any policies that we can put in place, any support that we can try to give, incentives to landlords to sustain and retain housing rents in the city. So one of the things that we did with the ARPA dollars is we gave this affordable restriction funding incentive to landlords, where if you're a landlord and you have a unit available, you charge good rents and affordable rents to tenants. How do we give you an incentive to put a deed restriction in your property from prohibiting you from increasing that rent over time, right? We were able to give a significant rental assistance. Inclusionary zoning was a policy that forces now any development moving forward needs to have affordable units in it. So these are things, policies and initiatives and funding sources that we try to put forward to try to help that. But again, the need of homelessness or the need of housing is much greater than it is of our ability to produce housing as quickly as possible.
All right. And when planning these upcoming projects, do they ever think about how it's going to affect low-income neighborhoods?
So it all depends on what project you're asking, right?
I'm sorry, not there. Do you ever think?
Yeah.
It just hit like, yeah. I'm reading it verbatim, but you get it.
It all depends of the projects that you're that alluding to, right? So, for example, downtown, there's been spaces in downtown that's been vacant for many years. You look at the Canal District, that whole area was a brownfield. It was contaminated brownfields area. It was shut down, and you saw the fences for many years when Wyman Gordon left. And we used to go to the carnival. It was just an empty lot for 20 plus years. What do we do with something like that, right? At one point, there was discussions of bringing a casino in there. At some points, there were discussions of bringing X, Y, and Z. And so one of the strategies was, if we bring a ballpark to this area, it needs to be coupled with major development to bring some housing into the area. And so that's where the housing, and most of the housing is market rate housing that came into the area. Hotel is and does that have an impact in the canal districts? Absolutely, it has an impact in the canal or even Green Island. It can have an impact in that area. But again, is trying to figure out ways to try to increase housing, right? And that's one of the challenges, that anytime you bring new housing or you do new streetscape to a particular neighborhood, you put new lights, new streets, new sidewalks, that brings a little bit of life and a little bit of value into that neighborhood. And then the mom and pop shop that just been there for 20 years decides, hey, there's a little value here. I'm going to sell my property, and I'm going to sell it to the most that I can get because this is my retirement plan. So they sell it. Somebody else comes in, buys it, puts a fancy cafe. Then they decide to do something else, and all of a sudden you start to gentrify the area. Yeah. But it wasn't just because.
So it has the reverse effect, is what I just heard you say. But unfortunately, we do have.
I know. It's a great topic.
I'll let you finish up your thought real quick, but we do have to go. So
I know.
Finish up your thought.
No, it's a great conversation because the thing is, it's so complex, so many factors. It's just like, and I don't want to undermine this by this example. I really don't want to undermine it by this example. But you and I, right, when we go get a haircut, we feel like we're $1 million.
Of course,
we feel a whole lot better. We feel
I charge a girl double to go on a date. That's right. I price gouge those dates. Yes, I do.
You feel, and I think when you do those lifts for a certain community, it creates value. And there's people who have been there for many years or what have you. They say, hey, there's value here now. This is my opportunity to get my investments, my worth investments out of this. And that then brings in new development or new people interested, which then impacts that neighborhood and changes the dynamic of that neighborhood. I'm not saying it's good. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying what it does. And then that's when the whole conversation gentrification comes along, because there's people who've been staples or restaurants who've been staples in that community that decided to sell, and now you have this random, fancy dancy coffee shop that changes everything, and now you have other elements or market rate, or people change their facade, and then and now the neighborhood is different, right? And I think that's the challenge where people are trying to figure out, how do we retain the people that are core to this community, but at the same time bring new value and worth to that neighborhood. Yeah. Do you know what I'm saying? I think those are the challenges that, I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm just saying that that's the reality of when it comes down to these things.
I mean, it's definitely a balance. In my mind, I like to go to think that, 100 people with $100 is better than one person with $1,000.
Mm-hmm. It could.
Kind of how I like to think about it, and keeping, because the majority of people can't afford 60, median area income, whatever you just said, all that stuff. Yeah. That's 60% of my income. Well, you can. We're not going to talk about what you could do, but I can't spend half of my paycheck on rent and then live for the rest of the month on the other 40%. Never mind. You know what I'm saying? Anyway. Yeah. With that being said, thank you so much. I appreciate you talking. John's giving me the world, so we got to go.
I appreciate it.
And thank you so much. We'll look forward to seeing you again next one. Oh, by the way, this is your first time in my studio.
I know. How you like it? I like it. I love it. Good space.
It's not bad. Yeah. We're doing big things.
You can do some workshops here. You can do a lot of stuff, man. I like it.
There's a lot of things we can do and we're going to do. And we got some major announcements coming up soon. But before we go, I do really want to thank our production team here, John, Mr. Munchies, y'all are the goats. Appreciate you. And with that being said, we're going to peace out of here. It's your boy, Manny and
City Manager Eric Batista.
And this is Manny and the manager on Manny J Media Community Delivered. We will see you real soon. Peace.